Welcome back to another explainer. Today we're diving into something I found absolutely fascinating while digging through VA regulations, and that is the legal power of your own words in the claims process. You know, when you're trying to navigate the complexities of establishing service connection for a disability, it's so easy to feel like you're completely at the mercy of bureaucratic records and clinical medical files. But if we look closely at the source material, the regulations actually carve out a very specific, incredibly powerful space for your personal testimony. So let's just tackle the elephant in the room right away and ask the biggest question on every veteran's mind when they're staring down a stack of incomplete or missing medical records. What happens if the clinic just didn't write it down? Or what if you never even went to sick call because the operational tempo was just too high? Can your own words actually stand in for those missing pieces of paper and win a claim? Well, the legal jargon in the Code of Federal Regulations actually gives us a surprisingly empowering answer right out of the gate, making it clear that you absolutely have a voice in this process. Title 38, Section 3.103 explicitly states that the claimant is entitled to introduce into the record any available evidence which he or she considers relevant. You aren't meant to just be a passive bystander crossing your fingers and hoping the paperwork aligns perfectly. The system is legally designed to accept your contributions as evidence. Let's move to Section 1, Defining Competent Lay Evidence. Okay, so let's look at exactly what competent lay evidence means according to Section 315.9. The regulation defines this as evidence not requiring specialized education, training, or experience. It's provided by a person who has actual knowledge of facts or circumstances, and it conveys matters that can be observed and described by a regular layperson. This definition is absolutely crucial because it legally validates your personal observations of your own daily life and your own symptoms, even if you don't have a medical degree. At the end of the day, you are the expert on what you experience every single day. Now, let's flip the coin and look at how this contrasts with lay evidence. Here we have the definition for competent medical evidence. This requires a person qualified through education, training, or experience to offer medical diagnoses, statements, or opinions. So this is your realm of doctors, scientific articles, and official clinical diagnoses. I like to think of it this way. The medical records, they're basically a black and white outline, but your lay statement is the color that actually fills in the picture of your real-world functional impairment. You cannot provide competent medical evidence to diagnose yourself with some complex neurological condition, right? Because that requires a doctor. But you absolutely can provide competent lay evidence stating that, say, your hand goes numb every morning, or that you have a visible limp, or that you experience sudden panic attacks. You observe it, you describe it, and it becomes competent evidence. Moving right along to Section 2, Proving your PTSD stressors. You know, if your military records don't perfectly document a specific incident, Section 3.304 of the regulations lays out specific scenarios where your words hold ultimate power. Under these exact circumstances, we're talking engaging in combat with the enemy, being a prisoner of war, or experiencing a fear of hostile military or terrorist activity, your lay testimony alone can actually establish the occurrence of the stressor. As long as your account is consistent with the circumstances of your service, and there's no clear and convincing evidence proving otherwise, your word is enough. Let's zero in on that third category, fear of hostile activity, because it is incredibly vital. The VA defines this as experiencing, witnessing, or being confronted with an event involving actual or threatened death or serious injury. And the text gives concrete examples, like actual or potential IEDs, vehicle-embedded explosive devices, incoming artillery, rockets, mortar fire, small arms fire, sniper fire. I mean, this definition is incredibly broad. It truly acknowledges the realities of modern deployment, meaning your personal account of these dangerous environments holds immense legal weight. Your response of fear, helplessness, or horror in those situations is literally the foundation of the claim. But what happens with cases of in-service personal assault? If a PTSD claim is based on personal assault, the VA recognizes that official military or law enforcement records might just not exist. So they actively look for other types of evidence to corroborate your account. The regulations point directly to behavioral changes. This could be a sudden request to transfer to another assignment, a sharp deterioration in your work performance, substance abuse, episodes of depression or panic attacks without an identifiable cause, or just unexplained social behavior changes. If you or even your fellow service members can document these observable changes in a lay statement, it serves as highly credible supporting evidence of the stressor. So the big takeaway here is that your detailed, honest account, it is absolutely not just background noise. It is legally recognized evidence that can prove your case when official records fall short. The regulations are explicitly written this way to ensure that the absence of a perfectly documented clinical record in a combat zone or following a traumatic assault doesn't just automatically defeat your claim. Section 3. Medical exams and your statement. Your lay statement is literally the spark that triggers the VA's duty to assist, forcing them to schedule a medical exam, often called a CMP or compensation and pension exam, if they don't already have enough evidence to grant your claim. According to Section 3.159, if the record lacks sufficient competent medical evidence to decide the claim, but it does contain your competent lay evidence of persistent or recurrent symptoms, the VA is legally obligated to provide a medical examination or obtain a medical opinion. So your written testimony is the exact lever that moves the machinery of the VA to investigate further. And once you actually get that medical examination, the regulations strictly dictate how the rater has to view it. Section 4.2 is crystal clear. It is the responsibility of the rating specialist to interpret reports of examination in the light of the whole recorded history, reconciling the various reports into a consistent picture. This means the examiner's medical opinion doesn't just exist in a vacuum. Raters are legally required to evaluate that doctor's report right alongside the history and symptoms you detailed in your lay statement. They have to look at the whole recorded history. Think about it. By providing a comprehensive lay statement, you are effectively guiding the medical examiner's understanding of your condition before they even walk into the exam room. A doctor seeing you for 20 minutes in a sterile clinical setting, they might not see how your knee locks up after you've been standing for 2 hours, or how a mental health condition completely derails your ability to navigate a crowded grocery store. Your lay statement ensures those daily realities are permanently injected into the record, forcing both the examiner and the rating specialist to deal with them. Which brings us to Section 4, the reasonable doubt rule. As we get to the actual evaluation process, we hit one of the most veteran-friendly regulations on the books, Section 3.102, the reasonable doubt rule. It says that when, after careful consideration of all data, a reasonable doubt arises regarding service origin, the degree of disability, or any other point, such doubt will be resolved in favor of the claimant. Meaning, if the medical evidence is completely split down the middle, let's say one doctor says your condition is related to service and another says it isn't, this legal doctrine dictates that the tie goes to the veteran. And a compelling, consistent lay statement can be the exact weight you need to tip those scales in your favor. Now, I need to point out that the regulation makes a very, very careful distinction here. Reasonable doubt means an approximate balance of positive and negative evidence. It's a substantial doubt within the range of probability. It is absolutely not mere suspicion or pure speculation. And this is exactly why submitting a highly credible, highly detailed lay statement is such a strategic necessity. Your documented, observable facts are what build the positive evidence necessary to achieve that balance in the first place. Finally, Section 5, Drafting Requirements. Okay, before you sit down with a pen or open up a blank document to write your statement, there are a few strict regulatory rules you absolutely have to follow. First off, Section 3.200 explicitly states that all written testimony submitted by the claimant to establish service connection must be certified, under oath, or by affirmation. If it isn't certified, it just doesn't carry the proper legal weight. Second, remember our definition of lay evidence. Focus strictly on matters you can personally observe and describe. Third, do not offer complex medical diagnoses if you aren't a doctor. You can't diagnose your own sleep apnea, but you absolutely can describe waking up gasping for air. And finally, provide specific details regarding places, types, and circumstances of your service. Sticking strictly to this checklist, make sure your statement is classified as competent evidence, rather than just being tossed out by a rater as speculative. The regulations are crystal clear, right? The VA has to look at the whole picture, and you have the legal right to help paint it. So as you reflect on your own unrecorded history and the sheer power of the regulations we just covered, I want to leave you with this final thought. Your story is your absolute strongest asset. So how will you tell it? Think about the observable facts of your daily life, the events of your service, and how finally bridging that gap could completely change the outcome of your claim.